The way I got to my first million was literally not spending. If you invest and perform over time, you can create your steps towards that first million. Your asset values gradually increase and you gradually build that. Start with what you have and start building based on the career and the investment in that career and perform over time. When somebody gives you an opportunity, do the best you can at that.
So many times people make this mistake. They don't track the amount of money that they've got coming in. A lot of people would say, holy moly, the amount of money that I'm spending eating out, wasting on subscriptions, spending on coffees. If I took half of that and put it into an investment strategy, it would really make a huge difference.
Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Sometimes you're not always getting hit with a brick, right? I used to joke, people live like this and they want to control everything, but you can't. What you can do is pay attention to what's in front of you and actually learn from that, absorb it, and then take the steps and do the next right thing.
Instead of raising your spendings, raise your investment portfolio first. So we go from that next step to 5 or 10 million.
So essentially, the big jump for me was
Greetings and welcome to the Dr. Espen podcast. I'm your host, Espen. Today I'm joined by an incredible leader, philanthropist, innovator, and entrepreneur, Todd Perman. I met Todd at a family office gathering in New York where I was presenting and he was partaking. And we got into conversation, and it wasn't long before I realized that this man had some incredible things that he had achieved and that I could learn from. So I started picking his brain, learning as much and as fast as I could. And now I have the privilege of bringing him on to the podcast today. Todd Perman has not only got 30 years of experience in cutting edge healthcare, but also as an investor, as a family office owner. He's here today to share with us the path as to how we can go from wherever we are at the moment with our professional life and our finances to accumulating the first million, and then up from 1 to 5 million, from 5 to 10 million, and so on and so forth, from a financial and professional perspective, but also how to do with philanthropy. His whole family is deeply rooted in philanthropy and has been for a long time. And then we're also going to talk about healthcare, because Todd is one of the leading experts in the world in cutting edge health tech. And this is important because the world is moving so fast. The healthcare system is so broken. But Todd is leading and innovating in this field to the point where he's telling me about certain devices. And I'm an expert in healthcare, and some of these devices I've never heard of before. And it's groundbreaking stuff. So he's the CEO of Seed Healthcare. He's been in healthcare teaching doctors how to do surgery. And he's got 30 years of experience. The list goes on and on. So I want to say a special welcome to the show. Todd, how are you today, buddy?
I'm fantastic, Espen. It's great to be with you. And you said something about when we met, you listened to me. I listened to you. You taught me how to breathe, brother. That was awesome. And it was a great experience getting to spend time with you and learning about you, your mission, your purpose. And it was also great to have you on our podcast. So it was fun to have you. And I'm honored to be here and happy to share and be an open book here.
Thank you so much, Todd. Yeah, you mentioned the podcast indeed. I will put the link to your podcast where I was interviewed into the show notes in this one so people can continue to learn more if they wish. Let's start with the breathing. I love it. The breathing is amazing. We don't have to go there, but it was really a privilege to share that with you. And I can tell pretty quickly when I do breath work with someone what kind of person or type of individual they are, if they really go all in, breathe, trust, and surrender, if they trust themselves enough to let go, or if they're holding back and shying away, and you went all in. So yeah, just a privilege to breathe you through that experience and then get to know you a bit better.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, man. Let's get into it. I know our listeners and viewers are excited at this point. So we're going to cover cutting edge health tech and all that and what we need to know in terms of what's coming in the world and what kind of health tech we could leverage. Because I, for one, intend to be at least 150 years young by the time my spirit leaves the body. I'm not mucking around. And I'm saying minimum for a reason, right? So I want to have that conversation. But before we do, your philanthropy journey has been amazing. You do so much positive and good in the world. I want to know how we can go from a startup entrepreneur
Yep.
to the first million? What are the most important steps from we start a business, or maybe we're in business, but we want to accumulate that first 1 million in net worth? What are the steps to get there?
Gosh, it's a great question because everybody wants a secret sauce, like how you just all of a sudden magically make it happen. And if I go back to my journey, I think that's the best way for me to reflect on what I've learned and how to share it. I was a young guy, got out of college at 20, went to work, and actually my first real job out of college was in the healthcare arena. I didn't even know I was going to be in healthcare, and it was in the operating room teaching physicians how to do surgery. You mentioned that. When I did that, I was like, all right, this is one, it was fun. Two, I was learning a dramatic amount about healthcare and all the things that went into it. And I was also a young person that didn't get told, not that my parents weren't iterative around go do things, but they were more like go make money. They didn't tell me about mission and purpose. They didn't tell me about drive. They didn't tell me how to go save money and how to invest it or any of that. Not that there was anything wrong with that. It's just that generation. So at 22, I'm in the operating room. I'm working for US Surgical. And that was a very good company to work for at the time. I was making very good money. And I was reading every book on investing. I read, you name it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. You start thinking about where do you put your money when you're making it, and do you spend it? Which I spent plenty. I bought more big screen TVs, and I was 22 years old, and I started to look at it and go, okay, how many of those do I need? I don't need that many on one person. And I started looking at what do I do with my capital as I do that, and literally all of the books I read said, take money, put it aside, and invest. So literally, the way I got to my first million was literally not spending and really investing in real estate, apartment buildings. I had, by the time I was, 27, I think I had 36 apartment buildings, and they were worth well over $1 million. And I started acquiring those with partners and leverage and my own capital, and just did it over time. And I think the steps to me creating wealth, that was one big step, because I realized that if you invest and perform over time, you can create your steps towards that first million. Your asset values gradually increase and you gradually build that. Now, there's other ways to do it. There's other ways to become an entrepreneur and start a company and sell it for billions of dollars or millions of dollars to start with. And I didn't do that until later in my career. But my first step was really getting wise to investing, committing to an effort and a career in a job, but also saving and investing that money wisely, and then deploying that all the way up until 2004. In 2004, again, my journey may not be exactly what everybody follows, right? I worked for two companies from 1992 to 2004 and had an amazing career. I ran sales for Stryker. I did all sorts of hospital level consulting. I would call that my learning years and my entrepreneurial days. And in 2004, when they asked me to move to Michigan or do something bigger, and I had young kids, I had 4 and 3-year-old. I think you have a young one at this point. I had to look and say, okay, what kind of life do I want to lead? And my kids were very young, and I knew I needed to spend time with them. So I, of course, decided to commit myself to starting my own business backwards. But it allowed me to get off the road and not be subject to corporate America after that. So I took a bunch of my own money and I decided to invest in a business that I started centered around changing the footprint of healthcare. So when I left the device industry, that's where I went. And that's really where the journey began of really growing exponential wealth, more than I had. And it was really about building a business and building a fundamental aspect around principles of change and being ahead of the game and where the puck is going, not where the puck already is, to use a hockey analogy. So when you start thinking about it, you got to be ahead as an entrepreneur. You got to be thinking about it, and you got to be building and constantly evolving. And so I started that in 2004. It was a healthcare consulting business around real estate, finance, and structure around serving the providers in the US. So I took the clinical knowledge that I had, the relationships that I had, and I started that business. And it was a risk, but it was a very calculated risk. There was a huge need because the number one balance sheet item for all providers is real estate. The number 3 cost is real estate. And we'd already done In the US, we'd already worked through labor management, supply chain, and all the things that kind of went into creating efficiency. Today, it's a whole different ballgame on what needs to be efficient. And I became an expert in that. I really invested my money and my time and my energy in helping the providers really save money, make money, and drive towards cost reduction. And at the time, healthcare was all very hospital-centric, and you start to see the transition to more of an ambulatory setting, which I'm thankful for. I think that helped move the needle in getting some better delivery of care, so everything's not an acute care setting. However, it still was a break-fix model, and we'll talk about more healthcare stuff in a minute. But my journey was to invest in that business, grow it while my kids were single digits and then young teenagers. And then I ended up selling that business to Cantor Fitzgerald in 2012. So then I ended up continuing to work there for a period of time after I sold the business. And subsequently in 2020, I really formalized my family office, formalized my investment strategy, and then formalized the growth of that along with the Seed Healthcare platform, which is all centered around investing in disruptive healthcare technologies. I think you mentioned that, but it's all about preventative care. It's the changing of the model. And I'll talk about mission and purpose separately. But to make money, you have to start and work and perform over time and learn and invest. And you don't just do it by snapping your fingers, although with AI, you can do a lot of things today that you couldn't do when I was building a business. I can create a business plan now much faster than when I wrote it on a napkin in 2003. But it still was effective. It just has to be a little bit different model today. So as far as crawl, walk, run, start with what you have and start building based on the career and the investment in that career and perform over time. When somebody gives you an opportunity, do the best you can at that. I can tell you, I've seen people that work for me, and I've had many people work for me, and I've fired them and they thank me for it. And then I've had people that come in and work for me and they do the best darn job that they can do with everything that I give them. And to me, that's like embracing things that are going to create that entrepreneurial spirit that will get you to your first million, that will get you to your first 5, that will get you to beyond that. And for me, it's the other leg that I would put on it. If you can figure out your mission and purpose early, that will also help the wealth come in a different way.
It's beautiful. So what we do a lot on this show is break down the wisdom that's coming from the people that I get to interview into some really simple steps, actionable coaching steps, little tools that they can apply right away. So the first thing that I picked up here is make sure that you're saving and investing more than you're spending. I really want to emphasize this point because so many times people make this mistake. They don't track the amount of money that they've got coming in. They don't track the amount of money going out. And then once they look at it, and you can do this by printing out a statement of the last quarter of your spending and go through line by line, where are you actually, because it's energy, where are you placing this energy? And a lot of people would see, holy moly, the amount of money that I'm spending eating out, the amount of money that I'm wasting on subscriptions, the amount of money that I'm spending on coffees. If I took half of that and put it into an investment strategy, oh my God, it would really make a huge difference. So just deepen into that if you can, that first step of awareness and really learning to pay attention to money and investments accordingly.
I think the way I was raised, I was always working for something. Like at 13, I got my first job bagging groceries so that I could buy a car. My parents weren't wealthy, they were comfortable, but I still worked towards it. And I think that fundamental mindset of how you appreciate money and how you spend it. And you're right about coffees and how things are much more automated and you can spend more than you think really quickly. I think I grew up with the appreciation of that value. I also grew up with a dad who, rest his soul, he's a wonderful man who didn't actually ever work for himself. He tried to, he always worked for somebody else. And it really motivated me to leverage the knowledge base and learn everything I could in the business world really quickly. And so that investment component and me being diligent about where I put my money was all about that freedom that I was looking for to not have to be in the position that I was in, even though I was working in corporate America. Then when I got the opportunity to grow a company, I knew that I wanted to be the ringleader, not the one sitting waiting for somebody to call the plays. And for me, that was a big deal. And sometimes you learn the great things from your parents and what to do. And in many ways, I learned that from my dad. And in other ways, I learned what not to do. It motivated me to do other things. So you need to take a different lens in how you approach each situation, take where you came from and really relate it to your reasons why. And I think your reasons why, and you talk about the journey and the spiritual journey often. And when I think about my reasons why, which also was a spiritual and faithful journey, it was all about me being driven to do more than what I had experienced as I grew up. And that doesn't mean it was traumatic. I had a great childhood. I had great parents and a lot of wonderful things. And my mom is still here and I'm super blessed to have her. And you think you take these steps and you're doing it. There was no handbook, right? At 22, nobody said, here, Todd, go do this and you'll hit this. You just have to fundamentally work. You have to listen. You have to pay attention. You got to live with an open hand and actually sometimes pay attention to the details that nobody else sees. And I'd say those things really kind of led me to the journey that I've been on in healthcare. It led me to the journey that I've been on and how I invest and what I believe in and my faith, my mission, purpose, and my drive. To me, I think the way you broke it down is right. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Sometimes you're not always getting hit with a brick, right? I used to joke, people live like this and they want to control everything. Well, you can't. What you can do is pay attention to what's in front of you and actually learn from that, absorb it, and then take the steps and do the next right thing. And until you really realize that there's all these signs showing you where to go, that may or may not, regardless of your religion, regardless of your faith, regardless of your spirituality, there are signs telling you where to go. What's happening in the world will drive you. There are signs telling you where to go for healthcare and what not to do and what to do, right? You just have to pay attention to the detail. And the details, sometimes we're so busy in our own world, holding it tight like this, that we do not pay attention to the detail. So that's one of the gifts that I was given in my journey.
This, I think, is very important. I'll get to that in just a sec. So the first thing is really pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Tune in, listen. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is showing you. This has been a really great awakening for me as well, realizing that when I'm trying to push something and it's not working and I've tried from every angle, as maybe I'm not supposed to go that way. And then I drop it, not because I'm not persistent, but because I'm listening
Right.
and I'm feeling. And then I change my direction and suddenly the momentum and the synchronicity are unbelievable. So great question to listeners and viewers. Where are you pushing and you're getting resistance and you've tried in many different ways, but it's not working? As I say, where is the universe telling you to go left when you really should be going right? So I love that. Okay, so we've got pay attention to money, look at where you're spending the money. Instead of, as I say to people, instead of raising your spendings, raise your investment portfolio first. Don't get the new house, don't get the new car, don't spend the money you don't need. Raise your investment portfolio first. Pay attention, learn, work hard, focus. And then, of course, the last one we just heard from Todd, pay attention to intuition and what the universe, God, is, whatever is showing you. Okay, now, Todd, how do we go? So let's say that's the journey for 1 to 5 or 1 to 1 million. You can choose. How do we go from that next step to 5 or 10 million? What are some of the high level steps in order to accumulate that kind of wealth?
So essentially, the big jump for me was when I started my own business. I decided to take that risk and actually knew that I had a mission purpose beyond the corporate world that I was working in. You can do a lot of impact working in companies. You can do a lot of things for others. And when I realized that I had generated over 300 million in shareholder value in a very short period of time, in a 2-year period, and I could have been doing that on my own, I said, okay, I need to be more entrepreneurial. So it was motivating. I had young kids and I started that journey in 2004. And as I started that, the mission it wasn't about growing, it was about independence to some degree. And I had already made millions. I'd already done well. But really, that journey of starting my own business and backing myself and deciding to take that initiative was really where I scaled wealth. I started making more money as a value perspective. I started to value my time differently. I was also with my kids more. If I had to be home at 4 o'clock, I was home at 4 o'clock. So I was an entrepreneur. I could do what I wanted to do. And the idea of that and the lifestyle that I wanted to lead, along with the drive of lowering the cost of healthcare at the time and driving really the change in healthcare, my mission and purpose was to do that then. I thought I could change it with a footprint, and I really couldn't. I did a lot of work. I made a lot of money. We grew a successful business and we exited it. And all of the work that I did have value, but it didn't have the mission and purpose value that I was looking for. I was looking to change how patients were looked at. Instead of the break-fix model of healthcare and the sick care environment, I was really trying to drive towards, changing the point of care, giving patients more alternatives in how they got care delivered, and at the same time reducing the cost for physicians to operate and hospitals to operate. And we did a lot of that, but no sustainable change happened. It really was a successful business, but didn't. So back to your question about how you really scale wealth. The scaling in wealth there really did happen when I built that sustainable business. It got to a level that I had performed long enough that it had a track record. It had revenues that were scalable. It had the ability to add to another platform that would be very aligned strategically, that had all the banking resources in the world that I didn't have. But so I ended up selling that to Cantor Fitzgerald. That gave me a significant tranche of equity and a significant exit. And it gave me the opportunity to then double down and reinvest and invest in my career, build seed and build my family office and sustain my wealth that way. Mostly though, my drive has not been about wealth creation. It's been about the mission and purpose. So when I said earlier, try to correlate, I'm instilling that. My son is 25 now. I'm instilling that in my children to think first about what you really want to drive towards. And you may not know that right away, but think about the things that you can impact, that you have the need and want to impact, and think about how you drive that together. And the more you can bring where you eat, sleep, and drink and make money and align that mission and purpose, just like you've done, Espen. You have a mission and purpose to drive real transformation in people. And to do that, you have to be completely aligned with that. And the money comes secondarily when you're successful and you have the outcomes that you do. And that's what's happened with me. It's definitely not everybody's journey. Some people are just driven to make money. But I do think if you align your mission and purpose, whatever that is, it can be to make people happier, make people healthier, reduce the cost of something, do something good in the world or that you're driven towards doing. And I think you'll find the money comes after that.
Oh, I love that. This is really aligned indeed. So let's break it down from a structural level, a mechanical level. We're talking about one, being really clear on what it is that you love to do. So to make sure that your mission, vision, and purpose is fully aligned with how you're making money. As I say, if you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people, the intention is to help the people to do great things. And if you do it in a smart, innovative, maybe even disruptive way, then the money is secondary. The money is a byproduct of the service that you render. But also you don't, like I see some, not necessarily spiritual people, but some people who are they haven't quite mastered the whole, I can be spiritual, I can have a connection with God that's just beautiful, and I can make money at the same time. That's really beautiful, and I think that's really necessary. But I picked up something that you said here that I really want to emphasize. You started in real estate and you were savvy with your real estate portfolio. It's just smart, right? And from there, the biggest, how to go from 1 to 5 million, from 5 to 10 million, you really emphasized several times running and operating and owning a business. And this is so important. As I say, look at in real estate portfolios, look at any diversified portfolio, from precious metals to stock, shares and bonds to cryptocurrency or blockchain. If you look at across the board, what is their annual return? Anything from 5 to 10%, give or take. There's more, there's less. But what's the return on a successful business? It depends on the industry. Maybe you can give us some more indications. But if you run a successful business, minimum 20% net return per year, and from 20 to 50, maybe even more. You
Yeah.
know, what other thing that you can put your time and energy into will return you between 20 to 60 or say 20 to 50% every single year? There's no stock that'll do that as far as I know. This is really a whole new level. So then it's actually looking at the starting or scaling a successful business and taking your capital into your business. If you want to be a business owner, of course, if you just want to be an investor, that's a different story. But I think it's really powerful to be a business owner, to be sovereign within your choices, to work when you want to work, where you want to work, how you want to work. I love being a solopreneur because I have the freedom to choose, the freedom to employ the people that I want, the freedom to let them go when they're not performing or we're not aligned, and so on and so forth. I love what Todd just shared here in regards to being a business owner.
Multiples of businesses are certainly higher. You can build wealth over time with real estate. You can do a lot of things. I'd say growing and investing your time in a business that you can grow with consistent revenues and consistent margins and a consistent outcome that has impact that you want to drive is probably the best way to build wealth. I'd say the multiples of tech companies are astronomical. You could look at the news, the AI boom and what's going on. You'll see those companies selling for 15 times revenues. Like, you can see the multiples are just massive. And if you're able to grow something that is sustainable, that can have impact, that can drive real change and outcomes, I think you can create a lot of wealth. That's where a lot of entrepreneurs go.
Brilliant. Okay, we've covered a lot of wealth building strategy. We've covered philanthropy. You've talked beautifully on making sure that the business and what we put our energy into is really deeply aligned with service and really deeply aligned with what we love to do. So that, as I say, we don't need motivation as a push when we have inspiration as a pull. When we do what we love and love what we do, we can't wait to get up in the morning and do it. So that's really important. Otherwise, we might just burn out, right? Now, I want to ask you this question. When you and I spent time together at the family office gathering in New York, you mentioned a specific device that you were working on. And it was, I believe, blood prick. And you could just put your finger on it and it would run basically the pathology on that blood in no time. Can you tell us, say, the top 2 or 3 most disruptive changes to healthcare that you know of, maybe seed investments, maybe you're already in there? But I want to know what these are and give our listeners and viewers an upper hand on what's coming in terms of tech and healthcare, please.
Happy to do that. Let me start with the device you're talking about is a company that recently FDA preliminary approval, 510(k) clearance of a device that is to test blood. It's a completely autonomous lab in a box, basically. It has a full immunoassay machine. If you know what those are, that's a blood analyzer that does computational math around the blood and can look at specific proteins. There's all sorts of things that can be done with the technology. But most basically, it is a complete lab that you would normally see in a big room in a very small footprint, that all you need is an internet connection and a power outlet, and you can run a complete lab. A high school student can drop a tube of blood in and run a full metabolic panel and can determine a lot of different biomarkers, a lot of different things. So the things that are missing in the world, right, are real-time information. This is a device that tests your blood in under 30 minutes so that your physician can actually review it with you or your clinician of any kind. And what's missing today is normally that blood is flown somewhere or driven somewhere or moved somewhere to another lab that's not done at the point of care. And then even worse, the patient is sent to go somewhere else to get the blood drawn, to then have the labs run. And I'd say about 70% in the US of the patients don't actually go get their labs run. So the doctors are making inferential recommendations to treat patients that aren't really there. The company's called Genelite. I'm happy to share more information about it. But what we're seeing is this innovation around computing power, robotics, and the power to do things in a much more efficient manner than existed before. The things that, let me think through. I go for diagnostic tests every year, full metabolic panel. I get screened for heart disease. I have heart disease in my family. I said my dad passed away early in his 60s. He had late stage lung cancer. Okay. That was avoidable, frankly. Your body lies to you and he could have had that diagnosed and his body lied to him, and it is until it was really late stage, he didn't see any symptoms, and it's unfortunate.
Same thing. My mother died from lung cancer that spread through her arteries, and then eventually the arteries around the heart exploded and she just literally bled out. It's crazy. She had cancer for 15 years. No one knew anything. So it's, yeah, you can have cancer for a very long time. How do you know? I wanted to just double down on this because Todd just said he goes to do tests every single year. I've been doing this now for over 15 years. And it's not just to see how am I sick or not? No, it's to see how can I improve and optimize every part of my body and being. So there's the whole biohacking side of things as well. But again, if you haven't seen a functional medical doctor or a naturopath or someone that can do these type of tests while we wait for the devices that Todd is sharing with us, then consider doing that right now, because to see is to know, not to see is to guess. And I'll hand it back to you, brother.
100%. There's a series of tests that I get every year. I probably go further than many should, but that's just me. I'm looking for measurement and outcome and performance, and I'm not an athlete, but at this point, I'm looking to live just like you are, as long as I can, as healthy as I can, with as healthy a lifespan as I can. The only way to do that, this is the only way to do that, is to not die of cancer, not die of heart disease, not have brain issues and brain health issues. So no Alzheimer's, none of those challenges. Metabolic health, which we talked about on our podcast. You have to eliminate those major chronic illnesses and make sure that they're not going to sneak up on you, because your body changes. We all have cancer cells. We all have bad things happen. You have to constantly be on top of it. And I'd say the first rule of living a long time is not dying of something stupid. I'd say today, the technology that we have is far superior to what we had even a few years ago. There's a clinical trial being done in Australia currently. That clinical trial is for a company that is actually a cyclotone. It's a therapeutic, and we don't invest in therapeutics, so I'm not even promoting a company that I'm investing in. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to help people not make bad decisions, help people. If one person goes and gets screened and catches a disease that they didn't know they had, then we're doing something good here. And I would be happy if that happens. So I would love to hear about it if it does. But that particular cyclotone and that therapeutic will go in and it will take out and attach to 7-ketocholesterol. 7-ketocholesterol is the poisonous cholesterol that we all collect in our arteries as we get older. That's what causes heart attacks. There's stable plaque and there's unstable plaque. Up until 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, there was no interpretation of a CT scan that would see in your arteries. Today, there are 5 companies that have AI interpretation of a CT scan that can tell you down to the micromillimeter how much plaque you have in each artery, whether it's your main left coronary artery, which is technically the widowmaker. Everybody that has a heart attack that has blockage in that artery generally dies, okay? That's the one that kills you. So all the other ancillary arteries, you can measure the plaque in each one. Cyclarity, the company that I'm talking about that's in clinical trials, is going to have a drug that would absolutely break down that plaque. And the fact is, that's the holy grail in heart disease. The other holy grail in heart disease is to make sure you don't have heart disease, or if you have it, not be a surprise. If you have a heart attack, it's too late. You need to catch heart disease early. And if you have history of various things, you should be getting screened. And I do have history. My mom had heart disease at 52. So for me, the innovations that are happening today are the screening tools are better. You can catch cancer at stage 0 now. You don't have to wait until it's stage 4 like my dad did. There's no reason that somebody should die of stage 4 cancer or late stage heart disease without knowing that they had it, right? And there's all sorts of things that you can do environmentally to change it. You can change heart disease if you work at it. There's all sorts of supplements and combinations of things that you can do, and holistic approaches, and also clinical approaches that can actually reverse heart disease. So people get scared to know, but the fact is you should be scared not to know. So for me, the actual knowledge is power, because then you know what to do, right? It's just like your journey on your health journey. You figured out what to do yourself. Nobody told you what to do. But the fact is, you have to actually know the information, and information is power. If you can't measure it, you can't do anything about it. And all of these things today we can measure. So I'd say diagnostics are getting way better. Like the blood biomarkers we can look for, the actual imaging and the ability to read the detail of an image of any kind of X-ray, or all the way down to a CTA, which is a CT angiogram. There's a company in Australia now also. I'm banging on the Australian tambourine today just because of you, brother. The idea these are two companies that are doing real clinical work and real clinical trials in Australia that will soon be in America with FDA approval. And they're going through the process. And both of them will transform the care delivery at that point of care that can real time determine whether you have heart disease without actually putting a scope into your arteries and having invasive procedures. So I think we're at the tip of the iceberg on diagnostics, and the things that we're seeing are really coming fast. We're actively looking at, for women's health, an ovarian, uterine, and endometrial cancer diagnosis that actually diagnoses cancers at stage 0. We're now able to map a single cell genome, right? So if you think about this, and I don't want to get all sciencey, but if you think of all the diagnostic tests and you think, well, let's make a correlate, okay? NVIDIA powers how much of the AI in the world? I'd say a very significant percentage, right? Like it's like what Intel used to be to a computer. They are powering AI. Nobody would argue that. So they've gotten this huge benefit. One company that has innovated it actually came out of St. Jude's Hospital. The founding doctor is a friend, but they learned how to amplify a cell so that when you take a sample, one cell, you can actually map the entire genome, the RNA, the proteomics, and then you can apply what is that. So in cancer, one of the biggest risks is actually the metastases and the recurrences. So when you get diagnosed with cancer, it doesn't mean you're going to die. It means you need to get treated, and you need to figure out the right way to cure yourself, and whatever that may be. When you do, depending on the path you've taken, the body has a propensity to being susceptible to more cancer cells, and the type of cancer cells and the transformation of that. Now we can get down to, why did the cell morph? Right? We're getting down to this super futuristic component, but it's happening now because the computing power is there. So I just say that particular technology will be the NVIDIA of genomics, because if you can take a cell apart and get down to the mitochondria, and you can get down to really, that's the power that powers when you breathe, you're powering your mitochondria, right? Like, you know the science better than I do. I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying that's what you're doing. So if you're powering a cell, it's down to an individual cell that we can get down to the diagnostics for. And I think that's a really powerful place to be for this next generation of science. And the things that are happening now, if you want to live till 150, be really healthy, eliminate the big risks, and be ready for what's happening in the next 5 to 10 years. Because those things, there's a company regenerating bone from stem cells. So taking some of your own cells, regenerating a complete total hip for you if you needed a hip. Like perfectly, epigenetically perfectly for you. No more foreign objects coming in with metal and all the things that are the risk. And everybody has a different lens, right? People get really picky about having fillings now. They say that's a negative because of the metals and all of that. And metals are affecting people, and microplastics are affecting the generations that we have. Young people need to get tested. They don't even know, but they need to get tested. Their blood needs to get tested. Their hormone levels need to get tested. The environment is, and we don't all live in Australia and eat all the great food you guys have. American food, man, it's a risk. So
many food-like products. That's the problem.
That's the crazy part, right? So my urge to everyone would be, get diagnostics, check, see what's happening in your body. Don't just assume. And there's no fear in that. People have fear. There's a lot of hypochondriacs in the world, and they worry about what they might find. For me, again, I embrace it, and it allows me to go to the gym more. It allows me to be stronger because I'm confident that I know I don't have heart disease that's going to kill me if I'm lifting heavy weights. I know I can do different things. So I can go skiing in Australia like I plan on, next summer. All of those things are what lead me to being able to act, being able to commit my time, my money, my energy, and my mission and purpose to trying to transform healthcare. And that's invaluable. So the diagnostics help me every year. I'd say that the things we're seeing in the engineering world around how we can diagnose, how we can treat, how we can reverse, all of that is happening as we speak. And we're seeing new things every day. We look at 330 companies a year, and our fund is very active. We only invest in 10 a year. So for me, we have to be really selective, and we still help a lot of companies that we don't invest in. Our big strength in our fund and what we do is commercialization and access and relationships to the providers. So they all are tied to our world. And so we actually look at changing healthcare at the point of care. And you're a physician, you understand, you cannot change healthcare without the physicians being on board. So we can have the greatest tech, we can have the greatest enablement, we can have the greatest next level genomics, we can do anything we want. But if we do not get the physicians and the providers aligned with the mission and purpose of change, and that should be keeping people healthier for a healthier lifespan. And we can go into biohacking. You can ask me what biohacks, what things I do. I'm happy to share. But the testing and the first step is make sure that you're healthy. And I think it really needs to happen at a younger age than we think, unfortunately.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Without the data, you can't make good decisions. Yeah, absolutely, guys. There you go. There's the inspiration for you. All right, my good man. I've got one last question for you straight off the cuff. Are you ready?
Hit me with it. Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, I want you now to imagine that you are on the world stage, and every sentient being gathered, watching, listening, every sentient being is tuning in to your message to the world. When you're ready, take a breath, take your time, and you share, Todd, what is your message to the world right now?
Don't be scared to change, drive change, and step forward and lean into the mission and purpose that you have. I'd say that too many people have all the ability to create impact, and they sit back and they let it go. I don't think you're doing that. I don't think I'm doing that. I'd say create that message and motivate people to actually step up and do things that will drive change in the world. We can do it. And unfortunately, we need to change the world a lot. That's where we're at. And I think we can do better as a human race. So I appreciate your question. Mine happens to be mission and purpose of curing healthcare and changing it. And the way to do it, I think I've iterated some of that. Everybody has theirs. So you have to have your reason why. You have to have your motivation to do it. It can't be money. It can be part of it, right? But it can't all be money. It has to be, what is that journey? How do I really drive it? And what is the why? Why do I want to do it? Otherwise, you're not going to get out of bed every day and do it. And that's what I would say on the world stage. I don't know if I drop the microphone, but I would definitely try to make an impact and get people focused on mission and purpose. I didn't get there until I was in my 30s and 40s. Don't tell anybody how old I am, but it's a blessing the sooner you learn that.
Yeah, I love it. Now tell us quickly, Todd, if people want to learn more about you or Seed Healthcare, where do they go?
They go to our website, which is www.seedhealthcare.com. They can also reach out to me on all the socials. You can put them in. We have our podcast, which you were on, and I can't tell you how many people told me how much they learned about breathing from you during that. And we have a lot of great content there. It's called Kill or Cure. It's on YouTube and Spotify. You can share that. And really, if anybody just wants to reach out, I'm more than open and happy to talk healthcare with anybody who wants to do good things. For me, that's it. And that's the best way to reach me.
Todd, I know your time is incredibly valuable. So the fact that you've taken an hour out to share the journey of how to become a successful entrepreneur, a successful investor, how to innovate, how to disrupt, how to change systems from the inside out, how to be successful, how to have impact, how to be how to start a philanthropic journey, and also the mission, vision, passion, and purpose that you've shared with us has been really impactful, man. So I want to say a special thank you for your time.
Thank you, Espen, for having me. I really appreciate you having me on. It's awesome.
Todd Perman, everybody.